Hello everyone, welcome to another MIFF roundup. Only 2 calendar months late. That's practically on time by my standards. This might be a short one, I didn't see as many films as usual this year, but I did really like what I saw, so here are my thoughts on the films I watched in the order that I watched them. I won't say the full title because my attempt to make French throat sounds is going to be embarrassing for me and unpleasant for you.
Jeanne Dielman, 23, Quai du Commerce 1080 Bruxelles.
What I knew about this film going in is that it's a 3.5-hour classic of 70s feminist cinema, so it seemed like the kind of film that I really wanted to see in a cinema so that I wouldn't pull out my phone at any point. Inside my brain is a constant battle between the part of it that wants to pay attention to important movies and the part of it that is never not singing the DuckTales theme, and seeing a film in the cinema is a pretty good way to resolve that conflict, I find. I found this film beautiful and sad and hopeful and funny and thoughtful, but I also think I need to watch it again with someone who is smarter than me. Over the course of the film, we watch 3 days in the life of Jeanne Dielman as her rigidly structured daily routine falls apart. I won't say what the tipping point for her is because the film doesn't, but the director has said what it is, and I already knew that going in, and I'm in two minds about whether knowing it would improve your first watch or whether that's something to reserve for a second. I get the feeling the intended experience is not to know, but the fact that I already knew is sort of why I got as much out of it as I did, so make up your own minds, I guess. Either go to the Wikipedia page or don't. It is your choice. The effects of what happens start small. The potatoes are overcooked, so she has to go to the shops. She keeps leaving lights on when she normally wouldn't. All of this points to a frustration gently simmering underneath the routine that Jeanne has put together to avoid looking at directly. This is not how a relaxed person peels potatoes. This is not a chill person making coffee. I wonder what James Hoffman would think of this coffee setup. The film doesn't show us the big moments in a life. Instead, we see the in-between bits, the waiting, all the, mum stuff that's too boring to put in any other film. If Jeanne's son were the protagonist, we'd see dinner appearing on the table, but because Jeanne is the main character, we watch it get made, we watch it get served, and goddammit, we watch them eat the whole thing. The whole film, and especially the ending, we're just sitting with Jeanne, but not in the sense that we're keeping her company. If anything, our presence as audience just makes her more alone. The very fact that we can see what's happening and are unable to help compounds the situation. If she knew we were here, would she even ask for help? Can we be the friend she clearly needs? At least I think that's what the film's about. I'm gonna go read everything Senses of Cinema has published about it before I say anything else. Chain Reactions is a documentary that lets 5 different people describe their experience with and interpretation of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Before I watch a horror movie, I like to watch a documentary about that horror movie. That's just the kind of person I am. Of the different sections, I thought Stephen King's was the one that could stand to have some cut out of it, but I get why as much was kept in there as there was, because, it's Stephen King. I really did appreciate the range of perspectives we get. Stephen King talked about how he thought of the film as a horror writer, Alexandra Helen-Nicholas talked about it like a historian, Karen Kusama and Takeshi Miike are both directors with very different backgrounds, and also Patton Oswalt is here. He had a lot of very thoughtful insights, but it was also just kind of funny that Patton Oswalt is here. Maybe your experience of Patton Oswalt is such that his presence here wouldn't be a surprise to you, but I was surprised to see Patton Oswalt here. Alexandra Helen-Nicholas, who is a reviewer and the person to talk to about horror movies, approached it like a historian, how the film sits in history, but also how it resonates in Australia specifically, which I appreciate because I'm from here. Australia. I'm from here. That's where I live. Look, it'd be about as effective as the Where the Bloody Hell Are Ya ads. I've read a lot of analyses of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre that's situated in American history, and that is a very important thing to know if you want to understand the film on a poetic, historical, mythological level. But I don't see a lot of analyses that specifically look at it as an outsider to American culture, what it means to view it from a particular vantage point. Helen Nicholas drew connections to Australia's horror traditions in films like Wake in Fright and Picnic at Hanging Rock. These films that point to a deep anxiety about a land that feels like it doesn't want us here. There was also a neat gag that paired footage from Texas Chainsaw with the music from Picnic at Hanging Rock, which I will do my best to recreate. Right after Chain Reactions, they had a screening of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and specifically it was a screening of a scan of a degraded VHS copy of the film, which I think might be the most correct way to view it. Also, the scan included some of the ads that were part of the VHS print, and it was such a blast from the past to see those weird 80s trailers for what looked like completely fucked movies. It's also the exact opposite to how I watched Jeanne Dielman, which was a 4K restoration. I feel like more films could stand to have the opposite of a restoration, if only for the novelty. Every time a movie gets scaled up, it should also be scaled down, for the freaks. The footage I'm using here is just what I could find, not the VHS scan, but if you do want to see that version, apparently it's being released with one of the Blu-ray releases of Chain Reactions, so you can see it too. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a film that has an almost mythical status, so I sort of felt like I knew everything that was going to happen when I went in, and I kind of did, but there was a lot that I wasn't expecting. Seeing it right after Chain Reactions meant that I was primed to see it as kind of a home invasion movie. It came up a couple of times in the documentary that, from Leatherface's perspective, that is kind of what it is. Like, you can see Leatherface pacing around and freaking out like, oh shit, I'm home alone, there are people in my house, what do I do? Like, as a kid, were you ever home alone and there'd be a knock at the door and like, you wanted to answer it to be polite, but your parents aren't there, and it's like, should I just pretend I'm not here? What if they know I'm here? What do I do? Because the version I watched was so degraded, there were some really neat aspects that are sort of unique to that version. Like, when they leave the gas station, the image is so blown out that it looks like they're disappearing into a white void, which is, I mean, sort of what's happening on a thematic level. Something I really wasn't expecting was for the movie to have some genuine moments of humor. Like, the whole scene with Sally and the cook starts out really tense, but as it plays out, it's almost slapstick. Like, he chases her around with a broom, and then when he finally gets her in the car, he leaves the light on in the gas station. He has to do that, like, whoops, forgot to turn that off jog. You know, the forgetting your keys jog, where you gotta go back inside for something, so you sort of perform that you're coming back inside because you forgot something to preemptively explain the situation. Anyone inside doesn't have to ask you what you're doing, they just see you doing that jaunty little jog and instantly understand that you forgot your keys, except in this case, the only witness is a woman he's incapacitated. It's humanizing, but it's horrifying in how humanizing it is. Also, like, look at the backgrounds of the house. Like, there's art. The house is full of art. Like, it's art made of human bones, but it is art. Who's making that? Is Leatherface doing that? The hitchhiker is going out at night and grave robbing, but like, is he just getting art supplies for his brother? That's weirdly sweet, but also horrific. And how sweet it is a big part of how horrific it is, and vice versa. See, this is why that film's endured. There's just so much going on. Joining the ranks of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and SpongeBob SquarePants as cartoons with a title that tell you the protagonist's entire deal, we have Lesbian Space Princess. Syra, the lesbian space princess of the title, finds herself in a bit of a predicament when her ex, who dumped her on her birthday, is kidnapped by straight white Malians, so she has to set out on a quest to rescue her. The movie is very funny. Like, there were times when the audience was laughing so loud I couldn't even hear what they were laughing at, so I'm very much looking forward to the streaming release, if only so I can read the subtitles. This is a special kind of queer movie in that it is an inherently lesbian story, but because it's set in space and so far removed from our reality, it doesn't do any kind of gay onboarding. There's no scenes of like, this is what a lesbian is, and this is how heteronormative society creates friction in the lesbian experience. It just builds its extremely lesbian story as if you already have all the context. All the world building is about like how space society works, and the fact that basically everyone is gay is just kind of assumed knowledge. My partner and I were talking about this movie and the appeal of puerile queer comedy, because a lot of the jokes are filthy. We came to the conclusion that Lesbian Space Princess and another movie I'll talk about later are great examples of how you can do bad taste comedy without being offensive. Like, there are some juvenile, terrible taste jokes, but none of them are at the expense of marginalized communities. None of them reinforce unjust hierarchies, so you can have the bad taste humor without wondering if you're participating in something horrible. And look, if none of that appeals to you, the Auntie Donna boys are in it. What more could you want?
Every lesbian in the L Word was also a thespian.
Yes,
Well,
that's fair. You cannot argue with that.
No, and I never would. Either way, we're getting off topic.
The Mastermind is a heist movie, but instead of Danny Ocean leading a team of eccentrics who are each competent in their own ways and who all come together to flawlessly pull off the perfect crime, it's an averagely competent dipshit leading a team of averagely competent dipshits. The mastermind of the title is an art school dropout and unemployed carpenter who tries to lead a team to steal some paintings, but is faced by a series of small problems. The most insurmountable issue, a series of small problems. His kid's school is closed, but he can't explain to his wife that he needs her to look after him because he's off heisting, so he has to find something for them to do. The driver bails and he has to do it himself. One of the guys on the team is unpredictable and escalates things right away. It's amazing how well the film sets up all these little things, and you just watch them fall into place one by one like dominoes. But at the same time, there's a sort of loose Shaggy Dog story feel to how it plays out. It's a precision that feels fuzzy, and it's very satisfying to watch. The script does a really good job of giving very little exposition, but giving you just enough that you figure out everyone's histories and relationships just by watching them play out. No one's ever saying like, "Hello, father-in-law, how's your disappointment today?" It's just completely clear who everyone is and who everyone is to everyone else. I was impressed by how much detail went into it as a period piece. Like, there's the outfits and settings, of course, but there's also like the vehicles and all those old style beer cans where the ring pull detaches from the can and you have to dispose of it separately. I can't believe that was allowed. That seems like a hazard. Like, just imagine going to the beach and those tabs are loose everywhere in the sand. Christ, the past was a nightmare. Dope fits though. I got into this film late, so it had already started when I arrived, and I had to sit all the way down the front and off to the side. Wait, you know what? Actually, here's a little intermission. I'm going to review the cinemas themselves. Yeah, didn't see that coming, did you? I'm not a fan of how the bathrooms at Capitol only have hot water in the taps. I assume it's so that you can't refill your water bottle and you have to buy a bottle of water, and I don't like it for that reason, but also when I'm washing my hands, I appreciate cool water. I find it refreshing even when it's cold outside. The inside looks amazing and the seats are comfortable enough, but I do wonder why the lights don't go all the way down during the film. There just seems to be a weird amount of light in the theatre. Maybe it's a safety thing, but like they could just have floor lights. Most cinemas have those. My other guess is that because it's part of RMIT, they want you to have enough lights to take notes if you're at a lecture or watching a film for an assignment. The seats at Acme are kind of hard and narrow, but there's a good amount of legroom, and the seats all have pretty good visibility for the screen. Plus the acoustics are great for Q&As. Mostly, I just don't like that MIFF screenings have started doing assigned seatings but not giving you the ability to choose seats. At Forum, I can just about squeeze myself into the seats, but there's not much legroom and the slope feels really perilous. If you're tall, your knees are going to be higher up than your butt for the whole movie, so if you get knee pain, that is going to flare up. Apart from that, the seats all have a good view of the screen, and in every other way it's a great venue for films. It's just those seats. I don't like them. I feel like the Astor is known for having uniquely uncomfortable seats, but honestly, I've always found them to be fine, even if you don't manage to score one of those couches at the back on the lower level. I sat through all of Oppenheimer in the upstairs seats, and I was fine. When I went, the ancient pipes in the toilets were blocked, so the downstairs toilets were overflowing, but I've been going to the Astor semi-regularly since I moved to Melbourne, and this is the first time I've seen that happen. I do wonder how many people get run over every MIFF because there's no room on the footpath, so a whole Astor worth of people are just spilling out into a major intersection. I do love this theatre though. My fondness is almost certainly a reaction to the fact that the Regent Theatre in Brisbane was sold to property developers, but I just really appreciate the fact that there's this old as hell single screen theatre with a 35mm projector that shows classic films sometimes. I saw Seven Samurai there. Turns out Seven Samurai whips ass. Did you know about this? I like almost everything about the Kino. The cinemas themselves have a nice variety of sizes, and getting a seat in one of those small screening rooms has a nice vibe to it. For MIFF screenings, I've always been in Cinema 1 or 2, which I like in general, but this makes the second year in a row I've walked into Kino 2 late and I've had to sit all the way at the front and off to the right-hand side, and the image looks so fucked from that angle. You could say it's my fault for being late, and you'd have a point, but the fact remains that for every sold-out session, someone has to sit there. Acme and Forum both have a lot of space between the front row and the screen, which minimises how fucked the image can look, and I get why Kino would prioritise maximising the number of total seats over the number of good seats, but I'm still mad about it. The problems at this IMAX are the same as the problems at every IMAX. Long rows with no aisle in the middle, sort of a perilous slope. It's fine, it's just kind of loud, but that's the appeal of IMAX, isn't it? Big screen, big visuals, loud as fuck. I'm old, so I have concert earplugs, and if I remember to bring those, I'm fine. Specifically, this is the 1981 film called Night Shift. There are a lot of other films called Night Shift. This Night Shift is an underseen 80s feminist independent film, and when a film has that description, I feel like you can plot it on a chart sort of like this, where the reason it's underseen is that it's somewhere in the area of being formally unusual, sad, and gross. Jeanne Dielman goes here, Fresh Kills from a couple of MIFFs ago goes here. I mean, the main reason these films are underappreciated is misogyny, but it's fun to put things on charts. The film is a slice of life that follows the night shift. Hey, that's the title. At a hotel. We see small pieces of the lives of the guests, the posh woman calling her auntie, the man having a nightmare, the little girl playing with one of those make-up doll heads, and we learn about them from these little moments, but on the flip side, we spend the whole night with the receptionist and barely learn anything about her, as is the nature of the service industry. Unless the first few minutes of the film have her giving a massive lore dump of her whole backstory and I missed it because I walked in late. Just took me too long to eat a pizza. Because the framing of the story is from the perspective of someone who works out the hotel, when the film shows a pillow fight or guests setting off a fire alarm, which another movie could have treated as a fun, carefree moment, my main thought was, oh god, who's going to clean that up? Tonally, the film is very interesting in that it has to balance all the guest stories, make careful decisions about what to keep from the audience, what to show, what to tell. When you work a customer-facing job, people tell you things about themselves, like directly to you. And on one hand, it's like, why are you telling me this? We're not friends. I doubt we'll ever even see each other again. But on the other hand, that's exactly why they're telling you. You're not part of their life. You can't do anything with that information. You just have it now. To the guests, the night they stay at a hotel could be an unforgettable one, or at least a memorable one. When you stay at a hotel, it's for a reason. It's because there's something unusual about your life in that moment. You're on a trip, something like that. But to the receptionists, this is just another evening. Every night is both exceptional and boring. Each guest is unique, but identical in their uniqueness. What's really beautiful about the film is how it shows that. We have finally got a release of Toxic Avenger, the film that's been in release jail for ages on account of being deeply unmarketable. This is the other film that I saw this year that's a great example of doing bad taste comedy that isn't offensive, by the way. It does the horror comedy thing where the gore is shocking, but it's so over the top that it's funny. And there's a joke where the punchline is a guy peeing on his own face, but the film creates an environment where all of that is earned. It doesn't seem gratuitous because it's all supported by the plot. Surprising nobody, Peter Dinklage is excellent as Winston. He's got this tough guy appearance balanced with a very gentle and careful demeanor. You really buy him as a character who just wants to do right by everyone, but ironically, what's preventing him from doing the right thing is how hard he's trying. For a movie as over the top as Toxic Avenger is, it's really important to have an actor as good as Peter Dinklage at the center of it to ground it in real emotion. Speaking of the cast, Peter Dinklage and Jacob Tremblay work really well together. They have a very well-realised chemistry together as a stepdad trying to do right by a stepson who is just starting to develop his sense of self as well as an awareness of how difficult the world is. Their first scene together sets up the whole relationship. Winston is trying to hide all the overdue bills that have piled up on the table, and Wade wants to do what he can to help, but he also knows that the only thing he can practically do is make himself less expensive by not going to therapy or not taking his meds, and Winston's never going to let that happen. Meanwhile, Winston is trying to find the balance between treating Wade like an adult by being honest about their situation and letting him be a kid by keeping it all hidden. This all takes place in a scene that is about as long as my explanation of it, by the way. It's very efficient. Some parts do feel undercooked. They tried really hard to have a narrative reason for Winston to put on a tutu, but it's clear the only reason he's wearing it is because the original Toxic Avenger did. Same goes with the blind woman in the diner. She had a really small role, and I would have loved to see more of her because even though she didn't appear much, her character seemed really interesting. I do think it was the right call to remove the romantic subplot that the original had. The remake just had so much going on that a romantic subplot wouldn't have had room to develop properly, but as a result, that character just doesn't have much to do. That said, the background characters have delightful amounts of detail to them.
Summon the nuts.
Okay, summoning the nuts.
Elijah Wood looks like he's having a great time as Fritz, and I really appreciate that each of the nuts got a little bit of personality to them. Like Parkour Guy. Love that guy. Even though parkour has literally never been the solution to any of his problems, he gives it a go just in case. There are also some shades of the director's previous film, another one in which someone is pushed too far and fights back, but kinda gently at first. You can see that in the gala scene especially. This is someone absolutely at the end of his tether, but still being polite about it. Over Overall, Toxic Avenger really is a perfect remake. It maintains the emotional core of the original, but it's been recreated in a way that makes it feel like it's the kind of film the original filmmakers would have made if they were making it now. Also, the studio used the marketing budget to buy and forgive medical debt, and so far they've forgiven about $5 million, and that's pretty neat. Thanks for watching. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. My output is infrequent because that's the kind of life I live, so subscribing keeps me in your view even if you forget about me between uploads. I'm on various social medias and I have a Patreon if you'd like to support me directly, like these people in my very efficient credits. Until next time, stay safe and say hi to your pets for me.